NFL running back.
Looking for a block, they're going to push him across. Raider, the tight end.
To NASCAR jackman. We talked to the 11 Teams jackman about his journey to pit road.
We're really going to start off with a really hard question. Maybe not for you.
Okay.
But let's say the NFL called today, Joel, and they offered you a spot back. How would you respond?
If they called me today, 53-man roster, like I'm playing.
Right, you're playing.
I think I'd have to take it.
Yeah.
I would.
Would you have to take time to think about the decision, or over the phone would you be like, yeah, this is a hard decision, but I already know what I'm gonna say?
The second one, yeah. Okay. Like, I still would take time because I need to sleep on everything.
Right.
But not like on every decision. But yeah, like I'd know deep down inside. NFL is like so. I mean, just like pitting, it's a performance sport, and there's a short window to do this in your lifetime, but NFL is even a smaller window. So, right. I mean, if that came back, yeah.
Do you think you would come back to NASCAR after, if that did happen?
That's a tougher question.
Okay.
I might, but you can get very set up in the NFL, and maybe like you don't even have to work after. And
right.
You go on to different endeavors after that. I don't know.
Was that the plan, like growing up, was football is kind of like my dream situation? Yeah,
it was the dream job, but I think it became the dream job because it had like, it was almost like I cared more about like the opportunity, like what can this job get me? So football was like cool. I was like, oh wow, you can make a lot of money doing this, and you start getting good at it, and there's competition. So there's like a lot of aspects of football that I liked, but it was almost like where that sets you apart from like kind of like the rest of society in terms of economics, like levels. So that was like the big attraction, and it's so hard to get. That was the other thing. Everyone's like, oh, you can't do it, or it's very hard, or be realistic, and it's like that just lit a fire under me. So it's like I really want this now, and then there's this massive pot of gold at the end of the rainbow if you get there.
Do you remember what your first practice was like?
The very first practice? I do. I just remember a lot of running. So the thing, I remember my coaches saying like what separated everybody, because I was an undrafted free agent, so you're pretty much looking to get cut. So you got to set yourself apart somehow, but they're like sprint everywhere. And they're literally like, in the frame of film we're gonna watch back, and like if you sprint and finish in every frame, like say like I was a running back, so say I'm like blocking and there's a pass 90 yards downfield, like literally run to the ball every time. So it conditions you, and then it's also like you just want to run to the ball every time, but they're like, if I was 37 when I was playing for the Bears at the time, like if 37 keeps popping up in footage every single time, so like you're hustling, you're getting to the ball, you know what I mean? So I just remember I was like literally sprinting everywhere you go, and then you never know when you're gonna get cut too. So it's like if you're giving maximum effort, when you go to sleep that night, you're like, all right, I gave it everything I had. If I get cut tomorrow, like that's just is what it is. But you didn't want to sleep at night being like, oh God, I didn't try the hardest I could on that one play, and they're gonna see it and be like, oh, he took a play off, like let's cut him. Like that'd be the worst. So my very first practice, I remember like, I don't know, it was like the most effort I've ever given, like ever, while I was in the NFL. Yeah.
Did your family have any like part? Like, did you communicate with them how tough everything was, like mentally or anything? Or you just kind of like, this is my time, I'm doing it all myself?
Yeah, you're in it. Training camp's pretty intense.
How long is it?
If I can remember, I mean, I think it's 6 weeks total.
Okay.
There's like the 4 preseason games, and then there's like 2 or 3 weeks before that of like training camp where it's like super regimented, like 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. is like completely filled. But then there's rookie mini camp and OTAs and stuff like that before, but it's not as intense as, I mean, training camp that's like your hell week, so to speak.
Do you have a similar experience here? Like, do you guys do any pit crew, like anything that's similar in preparation?
It's just not as intense, but there is that day back where, so the first day of camp was the condition test for the NFL, and it's like, here's where we're gonna see if everybody was slacking during the off season or whatnot, and it was real because people would get cut based off that day. So the test for the Chicago Bears was like, it was 10 110-yard sprints, and you had to do it in a certain amount of time. But like, you're just not gonna make it if you're not in shape and if you've just been, relaxing all off season. So the similar thing in NASCAR, I'd say, is pretty much the first day. You could see how much rust has been built up on people, like if they've done nothing in the off season or if they've kind of, done some work. It's not as intense because nobody's getting cut that day, but you can kind of tell everyone's like looking like, all right, like how's this guy looking? Like, does he have a six-pack or is it gone? Or is this guy like,
Right.
Yeah.
Man, okay.
That's the only comparable I could say.
Okay. What about the coaching is similar or different between the NFL versus here?
I mean, the NFL is like a lot more intense. There's just between guys, you have to think about it from a money standpoint. So they're investing so much money into individual players, and then we have like individual position coaches. So like there is a running back coach, there's a wide receiver coach. Like for every position, there's at least one coach, and then we have meetings specifically on that. In NASCAR, I mean, there's pretty much a coach down there, and he's covering it all. But more so, like when I first got in, like Kellen really taught me to jack. And then every other jackman like around you is teaching you. You're kind of watching and picking up habits. But we don't have like individual position coaches, so it's a little bit different. But I can see that that's changing. We have like built-in film times. Okay. So, but still we're kind of like running those more so ourselves. And if we do have a coach in there, it's kind of over like a broader spectrum. So we're just kind of like, let's just check out the whole pit stop, and we could see like that was the error there. But it's different in that sense, where it's like my running back coach was literally like, your foot's at this wrong angle. And then your hips aren't opened up, and now you missed that hole because of that. Like that's not happening here. You kind of have to be your own coach and catch that yourself. But the nature of pit stops is like you do this so many times. It's like 1,000 reps that you can actually pick those cues up yourself. You're like, Dylan and I work all the time on like these tiny little minute things, and that's really what sets you apart. If you're able to like dig into that film yourself, you can really separate yourself from the rest of the guys.
When you came here, were they like, you're a jackman, or how did that process come about?
Yeah, I mean, so I knew nothing about NASCAR, like never watched a race, nothing like that. So
you've never been to a race?
Never been to a race.
So your first race, you were literally pitting?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'd been to the Indy 500 by accident the year right before then.
Okay.
And that was total random. My brother's like, hey, I'm in Indianapolis. Like, do you want to come to the 500? I'm like, sure. And I was living in the area at the time. But before that, like that was like a few months before I started NASCAR. But yeah, never been to a race.
So what was the transition? Like, when did you first hear about it? Like, were you in the NFL when you like were exploring new options for what was next?
No.
How did that come about?
It's like weird. So I love football, but I always say like I'd almost trade all my football stuff in my life for like I loved rally racing. Like really? Ken Block was like my hero growing up. Like Travis Pastrana. I loved motocross, but I didn't even get a dirt bike for like the longest time. That's what I wanted. But I was like, man, if I could be a rally driver, like that'd be the sickest thing ever. Like rally cross is awesome. So I always like kind of liked the racing world, and I think through that somehow, and I think this dates back to like high school. I think I'd seen a video of like pit stops, and essentially that it was just like a unique job, and it was like it paid pretty well, and it was like there's like ex-athletes in it. So that was like, I mean, this is like years back, and I don't know how when football ended, and I just decided that it was like over. I'm like, okay, what am I gonna do now? And kind of the main driving force is like this needs to be a good enough, like it's got to pay pretty well, because you kind of get the taste of the NFL paycheck, and you're like, can't really go to a normal job. Like I need something kind of similar. And I don't know what happened. I was like, oh wait, I forgot. Like there's like pit crews. Like that's kind of a thing. And it was literally from this 10-minute video I probably watched when I was in high school on YouTube or something about pit stops. So I was like, okay. Well then I'm like, how do you get on the ground in a NASCAR race? I'm like, you can't just fill out a resume. Like, and that's not even the type of guy I am. Like I'm not gonna go like formally do this. I'm kind of more like, I'll just knock at your door. So I literally Google imaged NASCAR pit crew member. Like I threw that into Google, and I'm like, I bet you I'll find an image, and there'll be the name of somebody. And then from there, I could go into Instagram and then shoot this guy a DM, and I'll just explain my situation. I'm like, hey, I just got done. I'll just talk myself into it. And it literally went like that. So the guy's name I found, and there's so much luck that happened, but Dion Rocco Williams, who I didn't know, but is like the guy to know if you need to get in contact with somebody who knows like everybody. But I see this name. I saw that he played for Wake Forest on the photo, so I'm like, okay, he'll understand what I'm going through. Shoot him a message, tell him the situation. I'm like, hey, I just got done. I'm like a few days out of football. I'm like, hey, I'm basically like an NFL free agent right now. And I'm like brutally honest. I'm like, I know nothing about this, but I can guarantee I'll be the hardest working guy you got. Can you just help me get my foot in the door? And I was like, no disrespect, not that I think I can do your job, but like I'll work for it. And he's like, yeah, absolutely. He's like, can you come to North Carolina? And at the time, like I was working out for NFL teams like every Tuesday. So I'm like, my life is in a duffel bag. So I'm like, sure, I'll be out there. So I literally drove I think it was like the next day, drove out to North Carolina.
How long of a drive was that?
I was in Louisville at the time, so I think it's like 7 hours. Okay. It's not bad. It's pretty cool. But yeah, drove out there, met him, and then he's like, yeah, I've got some interviews set up for you with like, you know, he's like Gibbs and Hendrick and Penske and Ganassi. He's just saying these names. I know none of them. I'm just like, yeah, like sure. I don't know. Like,
right.
I was like, are these good teams? Are they bet like?
Right.
And he's like, yeah, I think this. And he took such good care of me. He was like, no, I think this is like really gonna be the best fit for you. And it was like by chance, like Gibbs was like the first team we went to. I walk in, and it's that conference room, like you know, kind of looking like Oval Office looking, big conference table, and there's like 8 people in there. All like the heads of, you know, departments, whatever we got, like the head honchos. And I remember I sit down and they're like, so tell us about yourself. Because they're just like not interested. Like I don't even think at the time Gibbs like really did a Devo program. They didn't have guys, they're just like, well, they told me they're like, look, we're a very big team. Typically we just like buy established pit crew members. It's kind of like, we don't train people too much. Like nobody off the street kind of is coming in here. Like they're like, this is where you want to end up in your career. So. But you got to remember, like I'm coming from like the NFL world, and I'm like, look, I've stood toe to toe with the biggest GMs, and like I've done this song and dance a few times. Like I'll have this conversation. Right. So yeah, they're like, tell us about yourself, and I gave them the spiel, and I was like, look, I'm done playing. You know, I've kind of had my success through hard work, and you know, just put it in front of me, and I'll get it done. I'll just, you know, work as hard as I can. So I got an apartment like four minutes away from here.
No way.
Yeah, I was here like, I kid you not, like all day long, like 4 or 5 times a day, just out here hanging tires, doing everything I needed to do. But yeah, they were like, yeah, you're this height and weight and build. Like we think we're gonna make you a jackman. You're like explosive, you're fast. And they knew like the one lug change was coming. So they're like, we think we could train you for this like new thing. So they're like, you'll be able to get a big jump on. Like typically it takes like 5 years to get on a cup car, but they're like, if we train you for this now, we think that there'll be a drop off because of the stop is going to get so much faster. Right.
So did they offer you a spot in that meeting, or did they give you a call later and they explained?
It was about like 10 minutes later. So I told them all that, and then basically we just did a tour, did a quick workout, and then I left. And then I was like, I had just hit the main road.
Right.
And then I get a call and they're like, oh, actually, we want to offer you. And at the time, like, I didn't know, but it's because I think they didn't know that I had other meetings.
Yeah.
And I talked to Kellen, because Kellen was actually there, and he was running me through drills and stuff. Okay. And I told him, I was like, hey, I don't want to be disrespectful, because so as the day went on, they said, hey, we're having practice tomorrow. Like, do you want to come out and watch?
Oh, wow.
And I had like other interviews set up for the next day, but I had said yes, like, and I kind of forgot about the interviews, and I was like, oh man, I can't like come out to practice. I've got all this other stuff. So I told Kellen, I'm like, hey, can you help me back out of this? Because I have other stuff to do, but I also need to go see these other interviews and, you know, explore that. And then I think Kellen put a word in their ear. He's like, hey, this kid's gonna go like to other companies. So they like called me right back, and they're like, yo, like, yeah, they're like, yeah, we'll offer you. So I never even stepped foot in another building.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you have peace afterwards? You're like, okay, this is where I'm supposed to be? Or was there a part of you that was still like hoping that the football thing worked out?
No. I was done. So, I mean, I was at peace with it.
Okay. Did you have peace about Joe Gibbs being the place for you?
I didn't know anything. I just knew, like, we were very direct in the meeting, and that's kind of how I am. And I think that's kind of why we bonded really well, because they're like, hey, if you're not good, we're going to cut you. And I'm like,
right.
Hey, if I'm not good enough, I want you to cut me.
Right.
And because it was always like, hey, if you're this good, you're going to get this amount of money. And like, you know, I want to make the most money that I can here, and you're only going to do that by being the best. So it was always like, you get this, you'll get this. And I was like, I don't even want to be here if I'm not going to be able to be the best and be paid like the best. Right. So it was always like a perfect relationship. So when I left, I was like, yeah, like this seems perfect. Let's do it.
Right. So did you go to the practice the next day with them?
I went to the practice the next day, yeah.
How was that? Were you intimidated at all?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. I'm not intimidated because I was like, I don't know anything, and everybody knows I don't know anything. And I think I got in pretty well with the guys early because like, I don't know, I think they were expecting like, oh, NFL guy, and he's gonna think he can do it better than everyone else. But I was like, I don't know, that doesn't help you. I was like, yeah, obviously I don't know anything. So I was like, oh yeah, what are you doing? Like, and I would try to step in and, you know, learn nicely and be humble and stuff like that. So, I feel like everybody like responded to that really well, and everybody's like, it's kind of the opposite. Everyone's like willing to help and stuff. So you don't have like this target on your back. Because I think everyone's like, okay, yeah, new guy, he's like big, fast, and strong, but I don't know, you're just like not a knucklehead about it. You know, you're just like, I want to learn. So I don't know, it's just a good way to be a good teammate and approach things. But they were like, I mean, gosh, that's what I'm saying. We don't have any position coaches, but really like everybody I've been around has like taught me to do my job to this point. And then you just kind of like fly the coop at one point, you know what I mean?
Right.
But yeah, it's really the teammates around you that coach you.
Okay. And how many practices did you have before you made it to the track? Roughly.
So,
it doesn't have to be a number.
I don't know the amount, so I can tell you the timeline. So I think I started in January, like mid-January, and then I was pitting a cup car for the Daytona 500 in February.
How was that?
It was pretty nerve-wracking.
Did you understand at the time, because you didn't know much about NASCAR, that like the Daytona was a big deal, or did that even register?
No, I mean I knew it was a big deal because everybody knows the Daytona 500, right? It's a pretty like renowned race, even if you know nothing about NASCAR. Everyone like has heard of that. But I kind of had the same like misconceptions about it as everyone. Like, I thought this was like the Super Bowl of NASCAR. I'm like, it's the first race.
Right.
And it was kind of confusing, but anyway, I knew it was like a massive stage. You get there. It was cool just to get on a cup car, because I remember like when we had that meeting when I first got there, they're like, hey, hopefully like in 3 months you'll be able to do trucks.
Right.
And I'm like, okay. And in my head I'm like, you know, kind of like cussing them out. I'm like, you think I can just do truck in 3 weeks? Like, I was like, you don't know who I am. I was like, I promise you, I'll be the hardest working person you have. So, but yeah, I made it to a cup car in a month, 2 months, pretty much.
What was your emotion like sitting on the wall ready for that car to come for the first time? Like, were you nervous at all, or were you just like, I know what I'm doing?
No, I mean, because that's the thing. I'm like brutally honest with myself. Like, I have no idea what I'm doing.
Right.
But even within that month, like I've had enough practice where it's like, I don't know, I think I learned this through football, because it's like you play in like really big stages, and it's like you can let the moment kind of become too big, and it overcomes you. So you build a lot of like mental strength through football. So here it was like, okay, this is another huge stage, you can tell. But I was like, you just kind of flash back to practice, and it looks the same thing. It's like, we're just out back, like the car's just coming in. Like that's literally all that is. It's painted different, but it's the same thing. And that's the same thing I tell myself now, even at the stage that I'm at now. But I mean, there's definitely nerves, but it's like, it's weird. They get high kind of before you're doing it, and then when you get in the moment, you're actually in like, you're in the driver's seat, like it's happening.
Right.
It's like the nerves just kind of get compressed, and it's like, wait, you have to do your job though.
Right.
So I don't know. It's like a yes and no. Like you get nervous almost before you're doing it, because your imagination makes you nervous.
But then you almost just zone in.
Yeah, you do. I mean, not because it's the car. It's. I think it's such a dangerous thing that's happening that it's like you don't have time to be nervous. Like you're gonna get killed.
Right.
Or you're like seriously mangled. So it's like the car's coming in. You better like lock in. It's just like, it's just a car though. Like just hit it like you do at practice every single time. So like that, it's almost because it's so dangerous that it almost helps to calm you.
Okay. Has your feelings during that very first race changed at all, like for this weekend? Like, are you still gonna get nervous until you hit that zone in moment?
It's a lot different now, because now I've put in like so many hours, so many days, so many races that I get nervous, but it's totally different now. Like I'll get nervous like randomly. I can't even predict it, but I've done so much preparation, and like I believe in the work that I've put behind it, that like I can talk myself out of it. I'm like, I'm nervous. I'm like, okay, so why are you nervous? And then it's typically for some random reason, and I'm like, you're not nervous about the pit stop, because you've done this 1,000 times, and it's gonna go exactly like you practiced it, because you've killed it in practice 1 billion times. It's like I've done every mistake in the book that you could do. And that's like, I think I had a talk with myself at one point. I was like, how many times are you gonna make the same mistake? It's like, you can only do it so many times. Like, you've experienced it all. Like, it's time to be perfect. And that only happens through like repetition. It's like, I've done so many reps that it's just like, there's nothing to be nervous about. I'm like, what do you think's gonna happen? You're gonna be great, because you've grown and transformed into this like, this pit crew athlete now.
Right.
You know, you're like a pro now at the top level. So I'm not nervous, because I feel like, when I was that first race, I was nervous about my ability. I'm like, oh, I don't know how this is gonna go. Like now, I've like no question. Like I know all the guys I'm with, like the back of my hand. I know exactly. It's almost like a sixth sense. You know, I know exactly what's going on with them. I know exactly what's going on with me. So there's no like. It's almost impossible to get nervous about my performance, because I've practiced so much and we put so much work into it. Yeah, I don't know. It's a very unique feeling. it's like a deeper feeling than football almost. Like I was very close with my teams, but like I've never put in this many hours with like, we have 5 people total, but we gotta really work with like the 4 guys and there's the gas man. But like, you know, all their tendencies and you can hear when timing's off. Like it's so much concentrated focus on doing one thing. So that's what helps me not get nervous pretty much. I'm like, God, I know everything, you know, you can sense everything. And if an issue happens, like we'll also adjust to it. That's the cool thing. Like we've gone through the bad stops and I'm like, it wasn't that bad. We fixed it on the fly.
Right.
Yeah, so there's no such thing as perfect, but when it does go perfect and we all execute, it's like the greatest thing ever.
Right.
So yeah, that just kind of like crushes the nerves. It just turns into positivity.
Okay.
You're like, your brain only thinks like, how good
Right.
could this be, instead of like, oh God, this is gonna be bad. Right. That's like probably the biggest difference from younger me to like, to now.
Okay. But you have switched teams, so have you had to relearn teammates? Like depending on, like, does that also bring nerves? Depending on like, what if they tell you like, oh, you're on a new car, this is your new like rear changer, whatever.
It does. Okay. That's like the biggest thing. I was just talking to Dylan about this today, actually. It's like, I mean, we always talk about this, but I was just telling him basically, I was like, nothing can shake me. Like, even if we have a bad week, I'm like, we've put in, so I've been working with him for like 2 years now with the same group of guys. I'm like, we've put in so much time together. We've like started low and then like literally crawled out and to become like what I consider the best team on pit road. Like just because we know each other pretty much and we rely on each other. But so if you toss in one new guy into that, it's like, I know, even if I know him and I've like been out with him and like, you know, I know him personally, it's like, I don't know his tendencies.
Right.
Like if he has one mistake, how's he gonna respond to it? Is he gonna be timid the next stop? Is he gonna like try to rush the next stop and make a mistake? It's like all the guys I have now, like the temperament is just, we're literally on the same page. It's like, if you have a mistake, like it just brushes off because it's like we've put in the work. It's probably a fluke. And that resonates through all the guys, like nobody panics.
Did you have to work on that, or was that something that came natural to the team?
We had to work on it. That's why it takes, that's kind of what I mean by like, there's no point in getting nervous. Like we had to like crawl out of those tendencies and break those bad habits. But now that they're set, it's kind of like, we know how to do this. But yeah, you kind of have to go through the bad times and you got to do some really, really bad stops together and be like, gosh, this is terrible. But like, I think the biggest part is everybody has to be bothered enough by doing that badly. Like we all wanted to be the best.
Right.
And everybody was like really, really disturbed by like performing poorly.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, well, I practice now. Like we're all like trying our very hardest. And that's always my thing. Like I've never been like a yeller at any teammate like that. It's just always like, if something bad happens, I'm like, I know you know. Like there's no point in me saying anything. Like I can see it in your face, it's bothering you. I'm like, the only thing to do is like it's like if it happens in a race, like what are you gonna do? Like, is that one stop gonna just spiral you downward into the rest of the stops are gonna be terrible? I'm like, no, dude, it's just a stop. Like it happens, we're human, like we're gonna make mistakes still, we all will. But it's like, it was a fluke. Like I know you can do better. So there's literally no conversation to be had. And I think that's like the right way to approach it, because it's like, you don't brush it off, and we care about it a lot, but that's the best thing for the race. It's like on to the next one.
Right.
Like it's done. Don't make one mistake become 10 mistakes in the future.
Do you have to learn different drivers' ways of like entering the pit box and stuff? Like does even the driver have a team aspect?
Totally. Yeah, the driver, it's huge. The driver is a big part. Yeah, so you learn there's just tendencies. So you have to learn how they stop. So some guys kind of creep in. Some guys like hit the brakes and it'll just slide. Some guys are unpredictable, which is, it's impossible to learn it because you don't know what's going to happen. But Denny's excellent at parking, honestly. And it makes our jobs so much easier. I can almost like close my eyes and hit the car.
Really?
Oh yeah. I don't know. Like it's just a replay in my mind. I can see the car coming in, and I can tell he's going fast, and then it's just weird. You can tell when the brakes are squeezing. It's just okay. It's going to come to a dead stop. And that's kind of how our job is. Like we have to make contact with that car. Or we don't have to, but if you want to be great, like you have to make the contact with the car basically like at zero. So you want no lag time when it stops. Like if it just is sitting there for a second, that's a second lost. So the more consistent they can be, like whatever habit they have, the more consistent they can be. That way we can adapt to it and learn it, the better. Right. But yeah, when drivers are coming in and it's like sideways or.
Right, like just this past weekend at Talladega, like when did you realize this is not normal? Pretty quickly. Like you can see the problem happening. So like, okay, it's coming down, and then I think it was like the 21. You're like, oh god, like
they're about to drop the jack, and you can tell like there's about to be a collision that's gonna happen. And then it got worse. You could see like I think they both tried to speed up.
Right.
And one of them should, obviously, it's just tough to tell, but they were in front of our stall. So I was like, okay, this is a huge issue.
Right.
Like basically when I was at my jump line, like they were like the 21 had pulled out. So like instantly I'm like, okay, we got a problem. And I just sat on the wall there, probably because of like Homestead. I'm just like, well, okay, I got to play this out and see what's going to happen first.
Right.
But yeah, same thing, like stuff happens. We just had to deal with it.
Just happened.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh yeah, so it's almost been an exact year since the Homestead situation.
Yeah.
And so the viewers they've seen that video, but you were talking about another instance that you had. What track was that?
It was Martinsville.
Okay, Martinsville. And when
Yeah.
did you know in that moment? Like, was it not until you had to jump over the car?
That one was way tougher because it's like Martinsville, you know, like it's so curved. So we were in an unfortunate spot where basically our jump line, like 2 stalls back, was at the curve. So the first time you can see the cars was our jump line.
Okay.
So like, I don't know, that's like the worst case scenario pretty much. Because you don't have time to like load up and time your jump. So that happened just because I think it was like a series of events, like we didn't really hear, and I think it's hard for everybody to see on that play. So like the spotter didn't really tell us like when he was 10 away, because at least 10 away we can like, okay, like he's really close, so like get ready to jump. And I think that didn't get communicated, so he just appears. And then I think if it takes 1/10 of a second or less, whatever, for your brain to process this and then to get into your feet to jump, like the car's already in the stall, so that's exactly what happened. So yeah, literally the car was like at our line and I'm like, okay, we're going. So I jump, and then that takes a lot of time too. So the second I hit the ground, the car's like at my right knee.
Right.
So I just like leaped, and then I don't know how, like I don't touch the car, get across it, and I'm like, oh, we're good to go. So we just kept doing the pit stop.
Oh man. So do you have to learn different tracks almost then too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to learn. I mean, gosh, you know, you have to learn different surfaces, different tracks, because you know some of them are slick. Other tracks, there's more tire fall off, so there's a lot of debris that the car will bring in. So it's just going to be, you're basically going to be running on sand.
Right.
You know, like because the car just spits up a bunch of like. So I think a lot of the desert tracks, like Phoenix, there's a lot of like pebble debris so along with the rubber, there's a lot of like just, I don't know, hard little rocks or whatever.
Is that something you just pick up from experience, or do they go over that in
No,
practices
see,
at
that's
all?
one of the things. It's like,
Okay.
it's from experience. In practice, I think they'll say like, hey, it's a tight pit road. Like, I don't know, Indy's always the notorious one. Like, I hate Indy. You just want to get out of there as fast as possible. Like, it's so tight. You know, the cars are not made to really race there, so the pit stalls are super narrow. So they'll kind of brief you on, yeah, I guess the dangers of pit road, but
Right.
those little nuances, like, I mean, if it's slick or if like what kind of debris is going to be there, if there's going to be debris or not, you kind of have to pick up through experience. But we definitely, I mean, we watched film on the race the year before,
Okay.
so we could see what happened or just kind of get reminded or see like the accident and how it happened. That way you can, you know, kind of prepare for it if it happens again. But yeah, some of these things are like too detailed where you just have to be there and you have to memorize it.
Right.
But for sure, yeah, every track's got its special dangers and tricks, for sure.
Now, when you're on pit road, you guys all have headsets, you can talk to each other, but who's all able to talk? Like you mentioned the spotter, so are
Yeah.
you guys able to talk to the spotter and he's able to talk to you?
So no, I think the communication cuts off with the driver and the spotter. So the spotter and the driver and the crew chief can all talk to each other, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
I mean, I think we might be able to talk to everyone, but they have that lane closed. So we can talk to the crew chief if he opens the lane up, but typically he's communicating with the spotter and driver only, and then with the road crew on the ground. So I think obviously crew chief's got like master control, so he can, I think, jump into everyone's line. But the open lanes we can talk to each other, and then we can talk to some of the road crew on the ground. And then when the crew chief wants to talk to us, like he'll come on, and then we can chat. And then we got some guys here actually watching film, like some coaches. And they can hear us and we can talk to them. But yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be much use for us to talk to the driver or us to talk to the spotter. Like that job seems so hard too. Like they're constantly, it's so impressive to me, like how they're just like, yeah, I can't even like say it back.
It's almost unfathomable.
It's crazy.
Yeah. And can you, or what's, I guess, the benefit of being able to talk to the guys during the stop? Because it is happening so fast.
Yeah.
So are you having verbal conversations during the pit stop, or is it more just a in case you need it type of thing?
It's an in case you need it thing. So I kind of mentioned that sixth sense, and you can hear a good amount. So you can hear when it's like, say for example, like when a gun is a little bit late, so I'll know when the perfect timing is, but so say you can't hear that. We basically don't use the communications. We don't talk unless there's an issue. So that helps make it pretty black and white. Like it's silent unless there's something, which makes it, you sometimes with communication, like you could make it worse. Like if we're talking, we're like, hey, I'm good. And it's like, I don't need to know that. Right. Obviously we don't do that. So the mics are only there if something goes wrong. So because there's a lot of sides, like when I'm putting on the right front, I can't see the right rear until I drop. And I'm going to drop immediately, so I need to know if they're late. So if they're having an issue, they'll say something, and it's never. We even like we shaved it down to even not making a specific word. That's why we're just say something if something's wrong.
Right.
So it's dead silent, and you'll hear like because sometimes like it happens so fast, like your brain will not have time to process an actual word. So if I hear something, my ears will be up. So I've got that. Plus I've got all the other cues of I probably already know what's going on because I hear something off. Like I'm telling you, it happens so, like it's literally like a perfect running clock that if something's off, I can tell.
Right.
Yeah.
That's so interesting.
So,
how long do you think it took you until you had that down? Or does it reset every time you have a new team around you?
Yeah, it'll reset every time you have a new team. I mean, I'm trying to compare it to like, I don't know, I guess like you'd be closest with your family probably, or your siblings. Like you kind of have this way of communicating almost without words, like you know what they're feeling, you know, I don't know, if they're happy or sad, like you kind of know them like that. It's the same thing while we're doing our job. Like I just know, you can almost tell like with their body language. I'm like, were you kind of uncomfortable there? Was I like in your space? Like you can, it's crazy how you can tell like what's going on.
Right.
But it's only because of like the time spent together and the reps put in together. So yeah, you throw in a new guy, it could seem like it's not an issue. It's like, oh, this guy knows how to do his job, and he could be a stud and he's like really good, but it's like tossed into a new team, and it's like, well, now we need to like learn him and figure out. So I mean, you could get the job done, but I'd say like to be the best and to limit mistakes, it takes a long time to really learn each other.
Okay, and I know that the 20 and the 54 just switched. How difficult is that? Like if you were told that you're gonna go be on a different car, same group of guys but a different car, is that the same type of reset, or is that much easier to adapt to than if you were given a new team member?
I'd say that's easier than getting a new team member, but it's pretty important as well, like because those guys are also involved in the pit stop. So I mean, it's huge. They are pitting with us. I don't know if many people realize that, but it's like, so Brandon sets my left rear for me. I mean, we've been out at practice a ton of times, and that's one of the things that you can control in a pit stop. Like you don't have many things you can control, but like the left rear set, he's on the wall, and I can pretty much get the tire set as like consistent as possible. So I mean, so that one I'm like super picky. I'm like, hey, I want it exactly like this, like tilted like this, and we have to practice that. And that's so they're really like an extension of the team. I mean, they really are. Like they're halfway pitting with us.
Right.
So when you switch around the road crew, I mean, it's not as drastic because you got your guys. Still a car coming in, but how everything runs, it's a little bit of a change, but not as drastic as getting a new team member for sure. Like,
do you remember when your first win was with this specific team?
Yeah, I mean, it was this year. I hadn't had a win forever. So I was on the 19 all last year. We went through a drought, which is crazy because I was talking with some of the guys there earlier this year. I'm like, we had a great year though. Like we almost won so many races. Like the Homestead one, we were in first, got dumped. A lot of times our engine was just like blew up and we were running out in first. Like some races were like locked in. I'm like, it's so crazy how quickly you can lose a race. Like we could have easily won 4 or 5 races that last year. But anyway, I won 0 races that year. And then the years before I was on just not as competitive car, so I hadn't won yet. So Kansas won. This was my first win this year.
Did that give you any kind of like extra pep in your step per se? Were you like, this is cool? Like, did that change anything at all? Or were you just like, I was expecting this?
It was just like finally, like I felt like I'd put in so much work for it, but like, no, I mean, the wins are so uncontrollable. Like, even if you get your driver back out in first and it's like the last final stop, like nobody knows what's gonna happen on the track. So you don't like take that too personally because it's like, you really cannot control that. So as far as like getting pep in my step, you get more confidence, you get more kind of like pep in your step from like dominating pit road. You're like, okay, that team is like, anybody around them is gonna get beat, because it's like nobody can beat this team. So you get more pep in your step from like what you can control. I guess that's what I've learned from like losing a lot. It's like it doesn't matter what you do. Like even if you do everything right or do everything wrong, like so the track is the track. That's its own. That's its own set of rules. But I'll say, now that we've won a few, and like you can just kind of tell everything's clicking. Like there's a lot of momentum. Like everything's finally working. Everyone's hard work is like, go in the right direction. I don't know. I guess that's like a little bit of pep in my step, but it's also for the same reason. Like we're crushing it on pit road. Right. And it's just been, now we've just been like linking days and weeks together, and it's like every week we're doing our jobs. Every week we're getting Denny back out on the track like he needs to. So it's just like well deserved. It's more so. It's not like pep in my step, but it's like, gosh, like we work our butts off to do this. Right. You're kind of seeing like the fruits of your labor, and that's great to see. And it's with the guys that that you love, and it's pretty awesome. Right.
What about the Denny, like, he's kind of entering this, taking on the villain persona, and like you guys have always had, like everyone's always going to get hate comments and different things like that. Do you look on social media at all? Do you let it be? Does it affect you at all?
Well, I found that people are so disconnected from the truth. So like it's fun to read. I'm like, it's so wrong that it's like hard to get mad at it. I'm like, I don't think you know how this works actually. Right. But I love being the villain actually. Yeah. It's so much fun. Yeah, like the boos are like my favorite part during a win now.
So it's almost like motivation rather than like
100%. 100%. Yeah. It's I don't know, like for that Bristol win, like we're getting booed everywhere. I'm like, they're only booing because you're doing good.
Right.
Like I love it. I don't know.
It's almost like a value, or what do you call that when it's like validating that like you guys are doing good because everyone's upset.
Exactly right. I'm like, it's a weird, like I never thought I would say it like that. Like, oh, it'd probably piss me off a little. I'm like, it actually like it's like better than a cheer in a sense, I guess.
That's crazy.
I don't know. It's fun being the villain on pit road.
Yeah.
But it's not for a bad reason. It's because we're doing good.
Right. It's because you're doing good. Yeah. Going into, I mean, you guys have made it far already. Do you change your mindset at all now that we're in the playoffs? Like, does that change anything at all?
It doesn't at all. We've had a lot of conversations. What's that?
Sorry, I was just going to ask if you enjoy the playoff races more since there's more value per se.
I do.
At all? Okay.
I do. I'm like a high pressure guy. Like that's when I function the best. Like back to the very beginning when I was explaining like I want to be the best here and I want, put the ball in my hands, or I don't want to be here at all. So being in that seat finally, it's like you're doing what you came here to actually do. Like you can pit the race and that's fun, but I'm not interested in that. Like I want to win. So getting to do that, right? Like I'm like, I want the pressure so bad. Like this, I only want to do the stops that everyone's looking at. I want to do the stops that are going to matter towards the race. I don't want to do the stops that are just going to be like, yeah, whatever they do, the car's going to get back on. We're not going to matter. Like I like the stops where it's like, if you mess this up, like race is over, you lost it. Okay. And it's the same thing where it's like, if you crush this, which you're gonna do because we work our butts off, we won the race. Right. Like I love that. Yeah. I think some people like, I don't know if they get scared by that, but I'm like, this is why I do. This is why I compete. Like this is why anybody that loves to compete competes. Like you want the ball, right? It's like
right.
Everything's on the line. Like one stop, like yes, give it to me. Right. Let's do it. So I absolutely love it. It's been like my favorite year, and almost like all of competition, football, NASCAR, like everything I've done. Like it's so cool being at like this stage. You got the best driver, we got the best pit crew, we got the best like road crew. I don't know, it's like, it's why you're here. Right. It's literally why we're here. And we've said that on the wall. It's like, what are we here for? Like at the end of the day, that's what you got to answer. Or that's what, at least I think about. Like, are you just doing this for fun or like, and I'm not, like I'm here for a short time, not a long time, I guess is what they say. Like I'm here to win, so. Right.
Do you think that first win at Kansas is like your most favorite memory so far out of your NASCAR career, or do you have something else that you've enjoyed more?
Favorite memory? I don't know. I think the Bristol one sticks out more. Okay. That was just a lot more like decorated. Like it was, I think because of the stage that it's at, like Bristol's a pretty cool arena. Right. And there's like the lights and it's nighttime. Like that one I'll probably never forget. Kansas I won't forget either. It's my first win, but I don't know, Bristol, we got the sword, so I'm like waving that around up there. There's like confetti coming down. Right. Yeah.
Is there one track that you haven't won at yet that you're almost like at the top of your bucket list? Like, I want to win at this track.
Yeah, Darlington now, because
Okay.
we lost that race and we had it won. But not, I don't know. I think Bristol would have been one, like, 'cause that's just like a cool track to win at. I want a ring too. I haven't won at a track with a ring, so I'd like to get that.
Yeah.
I think I'm just collecting cool trophies.
Yes,
so.
yeah.
When everyone's got like the sickest trophy, I kind of want.
Right.
But yeah, I think Darlington was a ring race, and but yeah, I don't know. I don't have like a favorite track yet, because like I said before, I was never like a NASCAR fan, so I'm becoming one now. So I'm sure like as I go, I'm like, okay, I really want this one now.
Right.
But yeah.
Okay, we've talked so much about like, do you get nervous? And it sounds like you don't, but like, let's say we get down to Phoenix, you guys are in the Final Four. Would that change any level of emotion that you have into it? Or do you think you'd still just be like, this is just another race, I'm here to do what I'm supposed to do?
Yeah, I don't think I could let it, like I honestly care too much to like it's like you can't let that moment like ruin it for you. Like, I mean, it is very nerve-wracking.
Right.
But it's just one of those things, like the practice and all the work that you've done has gotten you to that point. Like, you can't do anything different now.
Right.
It's like, for you to be successful in that moment, you're gonna have to do the same thing you've done from the very first race. Like, it's not gonna be anything different. And I think anybody you talk to that pits will agree. It's like, when you start playing with like, hey, we need a really fast stop here, like you're flirting with danger, because it's like now you're pushing the limits of like what you can actually do. And like the best thing for the car, like for the 11 car to get back out, is consistency. Like you need to be fast, don't get me wrong, but it's got to be very consistent. Like they have to rely on you. It's like, sometimes you can kind of tell like, hey, should we pit or not? Like, I think we make the decision easier for everybody. It's like, hey, we know our crew is gonna give us like a fast stop every single time. It's gonna be a 9-0. There's not gonna be a catastrophe. There's no risk. Like, come take tires. We're gonna come out right where we left.
Right.
Job's gonna get done. So at Phoenix, I'm like thinking about it, right? I hope we get there. But like I said before, it's just that practice car coming in again. Like, you've done it 1,000 times. Why would you get nervous? Why would you think anything different now? It's another race. So it kind of sucks. Like, sometimes I don't smell the roses as much as I should, because like I crush every big moment, because I'm like, I need to control it, so I have to like not make it as big. But so I don't know, there's like a balance. Like, so in the moment you're like, no, same thing, just do your job, and then after you can celebrate if you crush it. But
do you guys spend more time on the pit pad or in the weight room? Or is it pretty even?
It's pretty even.
Okay.
But spikeball.
Okay, yeah.
Spikeball's taking a lot of time.
But who's like the best so far?
The best?
Like currently.
I mean, you're talking to him. Yeah.
We have the spikeball champ right here.
Yeah, you can.
Do you guys do team versus team? Or, I mean, like the 19 car versus the 11? Or do you do like the 11 team versus each other?
I feel like that's always how it starts. Like, anytime you like start playing a new group of guys, like it's like, all right, team versus team.
Right.
But I mean, we play so many games out there, it kind of gets jumbled up, and then you'll figure out like different strengths. Like, sometimes we gotta even out the team, so it's tough to keep the teams all together.
Is this a new thing?
It's pretty new.
Okay.
I don't know, I've been playing for a few years. My brother showed it to me, but I bought a net when we were in Santa Barbara for P3 this year, because we were out there and I was like, I have to get a net.
Right.
So I bought a net out there, and then I brought it back. And then
that's
I
when
was
it
like,
started?
yeah, I was like, gosh, this would be so much fun. So that net out there was mine, but then we just started like playing on it, and then now more nets have come out and everybody's playing,
That's
and
awesome.
yeah, so
Do
now.
you do it during practice or like after?
No,
Or
after
both?
practice.
Okay.
I mean, and it's pretty good. I want to bring it to the track, that way we can
Yes.
like, it's great to warm up on, because I mean, you're running, doing agility, all this crazy stuff. So I'll try to bring it out to the pit pad and find an appropriate moment to play spikeball really fast.
That's
but
awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, I love it.